Hello and welcome to episode 34 of Nintendo Therapy, a show about the latest Nintendo news and rumors, as well as a celebration of all things Nintendo. My name is Kevin, and with me this week is Sean
34. Go us.
and Harrison.
Yeah, 34. I'm almost that old. Almost.
Oh, stop.
I'm a little bit older than that, but if you're wondering why we're not just jumping right into the Nintendo Direct discussion, it's because we haven't seen it yet. So you're
Don't
getting
tell us.
two. Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
You're getting 2 episodes out of us this week. Tomorrow, when the Direct drops, we're going to record a second episode with our thoughts on that. And we figured this way we could do an episode with all our Ocarina of Time stuff, and you just get a double dose of us this week. And so the fact that we're going to talk about our theories for what's in the Direct, we're not, if we guessed anything right, we're not cheating here. We have not seen the Direct yet. And
If I get anything right, then wow.
Yeah, I thought it'd be funny to put we made a bingo card, and I thought it would be funny to put our Direct bingo information in this podcast, because by the time you're hearing it, you know if it was right or not. And then you can just listen to the episode where we give our thoughts on the Direct after this one. So this episode, Ocarina of Time, Direct predictions. The next thing in your timeline will be the one where we uploaded us reacting to the Direct.
Crazy.
If it uploaded correctly, I don't know. Maybe you heard our Direct reactions first.
It'll probably be the top one. So either you listen to it or you listen to it. But our Direct bingo card will be on our Twitter page. I'll post it to our Reddit page
I'll post it to the Instagram, and I actually made us a Facebook group, even though I don't expect many people to use it. But if you search Nintendo Therapy, I just kind of wanted to take the name now in case we ever want that down the line. So Nintendo Therapy and Facebook groups, you can search that.
Well, there you go.
Trying to get off of Twitter. But in other video game news, my playing this week, I finally finished Grandia 2. So
Nice.
I briefly wanted to just toss out a few thoughts I had on that game. So there's an HD collection, if you were wondering, on the Switch for Grandia and Grandia 2. The first game was on the Sega Saturn. Second game was on the Dreamcast. And what's weird is the Sega Saturn, the first game is longer. Now that I've beaten the 2 of them, I can see from my playtimes. And I didn't expect that. And I will say, I know it shows up on a lot of lists of like the greatest RPGs like ever, but the ending of Grandia 2, the last like fourth of the game, the last 25%, it kind of feels unfinished, and I wanted to talk about it. So the first thing I started to notice is in the first game, they have these campfire scenes, right? Which are really cool. Every time you get to like a new location, they either stay at an inn or they have a campfire, and they have this cool dynamic where you have the characters talking and you can choose which character is talking. So you hear the narrative of the story from like whichever character you choose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cool.
Like you can sort of like follow the story from their perspective. And it does that throughout the whole game. And then the Grandia 2 did that for a while. But the first thing I noticed, which made me feel like the game was rushed, is about 2/3 of the way into the game, the campfire stuff stops. There's no more campfire scenes. And I was like, well, we were doing this all at the beginning. What happened to that? Then there's a section where there's basically 3 boss battles in a row without like any exploration. It's like you go to an area, and then in like the next room is the boss and you fight them. And then the story takes you to the next area and you walk into another room and you fight another boss. And then you go to another area and you walk into a room and fight. And I'm like, it feels like they're really just trying to like get us through the beats here. It's like they had the outline and couldn't fill this in with different areas to explore. So I made a note of that. And the thing that made it feel rushed most to me is I've never seen a video game do this, and I've played a lot of RPGs from that era. So there's like this kaiju giant monster that the end boss inhabits, like lots of JRPGs do, right? And it's this giant, like, it kind of looks like the three-headed monsters in Tears of the Kingdom. I forget what they're called, the dragon thing.
Okay,
and but bigger, but it's like got the like soul of the main bad guy. I don't want to do too many spoilers, but because with all of this trash talk, I would recommend this game. I'll get to that in a second. But I've never seen this done before. They didn't make a character model for that thing in like the regular world, only in the CG cutscenes. So there's a part where it talks to the main characters, and they use a still image from one of the CG cutscenes and put dialogue below it. And it was just so jarring. I've never seen it do anything like that before.
Right.
So that made it feel kind of unfinished. And then the last thing that made the game feel like maybe it was rushed, I don't know. But there's 3 final bosses, and 2 of them are just repeats of bosses you fought earlier in the game, which some games do. I get it, but overall, I'd say it's worth playing. I'd give it like a B-. Basically, if you need something to play while you're waiting for Mario RPG, the collection is worth the money. But if you've already got a big backlog of games, don't worry about it. Like, you don't have to add it to a backlog. But if you're looking for something, it's good. Took about 70 hours to complete the 2 games altogether. So those are my Grandia 2 thoughts.
Nice.
What have you guys been playing?
I have a interesting story, but I don't know if it's appropriate for the podcast. I mean, it's Nintendo related, so okay. I'm gonna try it. So
tread carefully, counselor.
I guess we could cut it if not, but I mean, but I'll explain because it's interesting. So I've said at least a couple of times that I have an interesting relationship with 2K, and that I was never gonna play an NBA 2K or a 2K game again until they make some serious changes. And I'll digress from that to not lead too far from the story. So the new NBA came out. I don't know what day it was now. Perhaps it was Sunday or Monday or something. And
those are days.
Yeah, like one of the days. And I was sitting at home, and on Monday, I think on Monday, and I was scrolling through Facebook, and I started seeing people are sharing cell phone pictures of the eShop, and that the deluxe version is 99 cents, and I'm like, what's going on? so like I like went over to my Switch, and I flipped it on, and I'm like, sure enough, like the deluxe version of this game is like $1. So I'm like, okay. So I purchased it, and I made sure that like I didn't use like any extra money or anything. I checked my account afterwards, and sure enough, like it was $1. So I don't know what happens there. And I guess what I would say is that
somebody did something on the way out after they got fired.
Or somebody was about to get fired.
Yeah.
Or somebody got fired for that. So basically, I would say like, I'm happy to give it back. Because
not even worth $1. Wow.
No, it's worth $1. But what I'm saying is like when it comes
I'd buy that for $1.
When it comes to like, because I was thinking like if the eShop was a physical shop and I walked in and I gave you $1 and you gave me the game and I walked out, you know,
and then it turned out that guy didn't even work there.
Yeah. So I like what I'm saying is like is like if they think that was wrong for me to do, I'm happy to give it back, and they can give me the $1 back, and you know, like, but I I didn't like go on the computer and download an ISO file. Like I downloaded it from the eShop.
Yeah.
And I've never seen it happen before. At least not on Nintendo's eShop, where there's been like an error. And I mean, this error was up for at least 7 hours because
Oh wow,
there's people were posting it like just nonstop.
I feel like that's happened before. I'm trying to, like, there was one that I remember. I was at work when it was happening, and by the time I got home, it was over. So I was like, oh man, I missed it. But I feel like something on the eShop has gone up for $1 by mistake before, and I can't remember what it was. Good story, I know.
Yeah, I've and like I don't like I've played the game. It's more than $1, but it's not more than I would think like a $5 game. I mean, it really is that bad. It has an 8% on Steam right now, which is
wow,
which is going to be
That's
the
impressive.
worst. Yeah, like it would like it's hard enough to get like that result in the other direction. So it's going to go down as the worst release, I think, of all time on Steam. So yeah, that's my story.
Sean, did you get Olimar back to his home planet yet?
Oh no, you're gonna be super thrilled and disappointed with me. So
What, did you delete the file?
the Spotlight game. No. Olimar's gonna chill for a while.
Okay.
The Spotlight game I didn't end up playing because I've played it enough to be able to talk about it. I restarted
we all
Tears
have,
of the
yeah.
Kingdom.
Okay.
So I'm finally going to just dig into that. So
Nice.
I'm still on the tutorial area, but I was like, you know what? I've beaten this 3 times.
I felt the same way.
I was
like, now that I finished
about
Grandia.
Yeah, I was so hyped when this came out. I'm like, I put like 2 hours into it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm sitting down and I'm really going to play it. So that's what I've been up to.
I think I'm going to finally finish it too, but I don't think I'm going to start a new file because we talked about that, I think, last week, where I'm at the point in my life where I'm like, I'll just figure out where I was in the game and go from there. But
I wasn't that far, but I'm already.
No,
like,
I'm pretty far.
I'm finding stuff I missed in the tutorial, so I'm like, all right, then. Apparently, I went too fast. So,
if I remember correctly, it was Pikmin that took me away from it, but I was pretty far at the time, and now I'll finally finish that.
I think what took me away from it was the fact that's Hyrule. I think.
It is like a little, especially if you played a lot of Breath of the Wild. That is the thing that, I mean, I've said it a few times on this podcast. I wish they had just taken those mechanics and put it in a new Zelda game rather than, and I know, well, people say it would have taken them more time, but I don't think it would have. That game was in development for like 8 years. So in that time, how much time did they save by reusing that Hyrule? I feel like they could have made a new one.
Well, the new one in Tears
again, because I don't have the Breath of the Wild time, so to me it's a new map. And then if you're wondering, Harrison, I'm still plugging away. I unlocked the goat in Vampire Survivors, so yeah. I'm still playing that too.
Yeah, you're just chugging away at it. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. The quick weekly Vampire Survivors update. Like they're gonna have to sponsor the show at some point.
They might have to.
Yeah. So. And we'll be glad to do it.
So I cleared room for our Ocarina of Time discussion this week. I only had 2 real news stories I wanted to talk about, and then if you guys had anything, feel free to chime in. But the first one,
I think that's perfect because I think we have so much on the game. So yeah, what do you got?
The first one, this is going to lead into, there's a lot of Switch 2 rumors flying around right now. Some of them we've discussed on the podcast, but this is actually a confirmed thing that is real. like this is something that Nintendo we know
It's
is true. Is so Nintendo filed patents for a smart fluid joystick that will prevent Joy-Con drift. And it didn't say how they're planning to implement this, but the smart money is on this will be in the Switch 2 controllers. And maybe they'll put out new Switch controllers with it as well. But I think it's nice to see that some sort of tech news is being officially released right now about some of these things, where now I can not worry about the next system having the Joy-Con drift. Because I don't know if you guys have had it, but I've had 2 controllers now that have had the Joy-Con drift. One of them I want to send in because apparently they'll send you the fixed controller back. I just never get around to it.
I just
Yeah,
want to
oddly,
know.
I've never had issues with the Switch controllers.
Do you use a Pro controller or do you use the Joy-Cons?
I use both, and I've never had
Okay.
drift, so I just lucked out.
I'm drifting all over.
Yeah, I don't have as much drift problem as I do like the thumbsticks start to wear out on me after a while. I do have like some natural oils, I think, in my hands a little bit too much. That
It ruined Tony Hawk for me. The last time I had this happen was whenever that game dropped, and I had to stop playing until I could get a new controller because the drift was so bad. And no, I'm not bad at the games.
sucks.
It wasn't me.
No, no. I've experienced Joy-Con drift, but luckily I've been able to fix it like every time I have. But I've been thinking like Joy-Con, like joystick drift and Nintendo goes back at least 20 years. So
Oh yeah.
Does it?
Oh yeah, the Nintendo 64 joysticks got worn out like crazy.
So I'll share mine. Like, the first memory I have of it is when I had my GameCube Wavebird controller, which I loved. I loved my wireless Wavebird controller, but it eventually got joystick drift, and that was an official Nintendo product. So, I mean,
I never had it on the GameCube. I had it on the 64 though. I don't know if it was drift, but it was like you said, like the stick would get damaged.
Yeah,
I've never had it on a Nintendo console.
Well, maybe you just got the feather touch that we need to master. Maybe we're just ramming that joystick too hard. I don't know.
Well, I'm playing games like Stardew Valley. I'm playing some pretty intense,
hardcore.
Some hardcore. Yeah. You gotta harvest those crops, and you gotta like go to the left and right.
I'm playing Yoshi's Woolly World and Kirby Star Allies. These are hardcore games.
Yeah.
You can't be getting crazy with it, guys.
So I just want to know why now. Or like,
it's got to be for the new system. That's the part of this that isn't confirmed, but I think it kind of is implied.
Yeah, but
it makes sense.
I just always assumed that like we've had 20 plus years of joystick drift because Nintendo makes money off people buying new controllers. Like I know that's a little bit cynical to say, but
yeah,
it's the same thing with Apple. It's the same thing
I think they are kind of wise to the reputation they have in certain areas though, because it seems like if the rumors are true about the next system being backwards compatible, that also addresses another thing that people critique Nintendo for, is constantly reselling old games. And there's a few YouTubers I've seen who still are like, I refuse to believe it's backwards compatible because Nintendo is going to resell Breath of the Wild on the new system or something. And we can talk about it. That was one of the rumors, is that the dev kit that people were being shown of the new system was running an HD version, like a 60 frames per second version with no pop-in of Breath of the Wild. And they're saying, ooh, maybe that'll be like a launch game. I think it's just a tech demo to show off the specs of the system. But
right, I think so too.
I would agree.
Yeah, I think so too. And that was kind of going into the rumors that I had, because apparently they also showed the tech demo for Matrix Reloaded, which is really just a tech demo. If that's true, I'm not surprised because I mean I played the tech demo on my Series S and it's pretty cool, but like I don't know what showing a tech demo is. Like, is that just basically showing like a video on a system?
I think how I saw it explained, I can't remember where I got this information, but I got it this week, was somebody was talking about these very rumors. And they were saying what they probably saw at Gamescom backstage in secret was, you'll notice nobody's giving any rumors aside from saying that it's going to have a camera built in. Nobody's saying anything about how this system looks. No one's saying like, oh, it looks like a more beefed up Nintendo Switch or anything. And they said what they most likely probably saw was running on a PC with like a, you know, USB controller or something, that like they don't even have the system controller, but Nintendo basically saying, you see what this is showing you, this is what the system will be able to do. Even though it's probably like, it's not like they were playing the actual system.
I feel like that's similar to, wasn't that what that Zelda GameCube thing was more just the, hey, this is what this can do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did it for GameCube and they did one for the Wii U, remember? I still want a Zelda game that looks like that Wii U demo because it was showing off the different lighting. It had the fairy go by him and stuff.
Yeah, so I mean,
fought
that's
the
not
spider.
anything they haven't done in the past.
You know what though? Like we're a podcast. We should be having more fun with this. Listeners, why was it Breath of the Wild, not Tears of the Kingdom? I mean,
that's a good question.
I mean, let's speculate. Let's have fun. Like the whole point of all of this is just it's fun, right? It's just like, and if we're wrong, if we're right, if it's nothing, you know, then, but hey, perhaps we will see Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom enhanced on this system. Perhaps we will see enhanced games from the Switch on a new Switch.
I think we will, because I see, again, I've seen some other people say like, oh, Nintendo's totally going to resell their old games, so the new one's probably not going to be backwards compatible. I think both can be true. Like, I think for one, the leaks gave a very specific example of how it's backwards compatible, which is why I believe them. They said that they were told the slot is going to be like the 3DS, where if I don't know if you remember, if you put a 3DS cart in there, it fits, but you can also put a DS game in the same slot and it works. So it's going to be like that. And more back to what I was saying though, you can make the system backwards compatible and sell an HD version of Breath of the Wild. So it's like, okay, you could play your Switch version on this, but if you want the nice version, we're selling that again. You know what I'm saying? And they could do that with a few games.
Yeah,
exactly. Like the PlayStation 5 does that with a few games where they charge you to upscale it.
Spider-Man.
Or
exactly.
And I'm going to buy it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would buy a lot of the games again, especially if they do something like if they release like Smash Brothers with all of the DLC characters on the new system, or you could backwards compatible the one you already have. You see, they can do both and they'll still make money.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, or it's like when I see on like these Facebook groups when I see people post like, when are they going to release a new Mario Kart? And it's like, do we need it? like
not really.
They keep releasing. What does a new game give you? Well, it gives you new tracks. They're releasing new tracks. It gives you new characters. They're releasing new characters. It gives you new music. They're putting new music in. Like, it's all of the stuff that the DLC is doing is basically a new Mario Kart. It's just running on. You want a new mechanic. That's the only thing you're not getting.
It's got to be the highest selling Switch game, right?
Oh yeah.
One of. I mean,
it's some. We saw that crazy statistic we said on the show, which is something like a third of Switch owners have that game. It's something like, it might be more.
I actually don't. I would think so. It's way more in Smash Brothers. So I would.
Well, it's like the most accessible, other than regular Mario, like
Yeah, I
game.
just looked it up. They've sold. It's the best selling. One of the best selling games of all. 63.92 million units. 63
Yeah.
million. So call it 64 because it's 63.9, and we love
So I
Nintendo
mean,
64. So 64 million units sold. How many Switches are sold? Like 140
yeah. So I
million?
mean, why wouldn't? I mean, they're supporting it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
I think
exactly.
we're good on that front.
So it's over a third, by the way.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Over a third of Switch owners have Mario Kart 8.
yeah. It's
One
it's just something with
more than
like
1 in 3.
it's just something with like the numbers or like not understanding like the DLC of it or like just just like blanket statements that you can like put out there that like
Yeah.
if you're not paying attention you're like, oh, what is Nintendo doing, like why don't they release blah blah blah, you know? So
I'm so bad at math. I just realized it's almost half. Like 70 million would be half. So, yeah, 64 million. That's crazy. Almost half the Switches have Mario Kart 8.
yeah,
Yeah, that's insane. So, and they
yeah,
have another bundle coming for it. So,
Unless this is including the Wii U numbers for it. But still.
I
I
Wii U. I
didn't
mean,
sell that
that would
much
be
on
like what,
that.
like that would be like 5 units. So we can add like five. Or did you buy the game, Kevin, on Wii U? Six units.
So, all right, I got the numbers here. I checked a different source, and that number was including the Wii U numbers. So it sold 8.5 million on the Wii U and 56 million on Switch.
I mean, eight and a
Well,
half
that's a
million
bit of a
is.
jump.
I mean, 8.5 million is a ton. I mean, that's more than the Spotlight game that we're doing today.
Well,
So
that's how many I'm going to look up how many Wii U units sold, because that's definitely a bigger percentage.
guys, this
Yeah.
is some live research that we're doing right now. I do.
103 million. Oh, that's games. Continue to talk. I'm sorry.
Oh no,
13 million consoles. So they sold 13 million Wii U's and 8.5 million. So no, that's not a bigger percentage. It's a bigger percentage on the Switch.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised about that because, just the how many games you had available. But no, I just wanted to end, like, for me, ending this rumor section for me. I think some of the people reporting on this are full of it. I I really do, because I've been seeing
That's fair.
I've been seeing so many, for example, I was reading Video Game Chronicle, and Video Game Chronicle was talking about Switch 2, exactly what we were talking about, and they referenced Eurogamer, which I also read, and they said that they also had its own sources that it can corroborate with Eurogamer, but none of them give sources of where this is actually coming from besides them saying we have sources. So I think with the amount of people reporting on this, I'm sure some of them do know. I think there is enough noise and enough gas, and like Nintendo does this in a certain way. I think it's legitimate, but I think some people are just making news stories about other people making news stories. And that's all I wanted to say to kind of end this section.
The thing that sounds weirdest to me is the camera feature. Like, I feel like that's something they stopped putting in stuff like almost 10 years ago. It's like we're like,
Yeah.
we got cameras on our phones. We don't need them in anything else. It's kind of weird. It'll be interesting to see if that's true, and if it is true, how they use it.
But you know what? Like, to kind of go against that, I think Nintendo is kind of a weird tech company, though. Like
That's true.
like
I could totally see them having like Nintendo Studio and like you use like your camera and you
Yeah.
make little Mario
'Cause
movies or
I
something.
could totally see like big picture Nintendo brain them thinking like AR is the future, and we're gonna
Yeah.
They did
include
that Mario Kart
yeah,
thing
and we're, and
where
we're,
you
and
drive
we're
your Mario Kart around the
yeah, and
house.
we're gonna include augmented reality into the Switch, the next Switch at some point, and it could be something very much like the 3DS, where I mean, I think the majority of people turn that feature off immediately.
Yeah.
I think so. I
I
never
never
used
used
it.
it.
Like,
And the other news story that I have here is they released the Mario Wonder pre-order bonuses, one at GameStop and one at Walmart, and they look pretty cool. One was a card set, which of course with any card set comes rare cards. So people will be going crazy for those like Pokemon cards.
Yep.
And Walmart has the trading cards and GameStop has a sticker set, which is a little less cool to me, but still something.
The trading card thing sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, I hope they sell those. I'm almost certain they will sell those packs individually because I might actually get into that.
I
Try to get a full set.
like it would be nice if they started doing like ones outside of America and perhaps China. But I'm assuming this is just America only. Um,
I would assume too. I didn't see anything saying
I would assume
otherwise.
that this is like Walmart in just the one country.
I wish you could get pre-order bonuses for pre-ordering it digitally because I don't want to have I don't own any physical games for the Switch. I don't want this to be the one game I own physically just to get a pack of cards. So I wish there was something I could do.
You know something I've noticed a lot more lately now that I've I mentioned Steam a lot, but I noticed that a lot of people are really into the digital collectibles. Whether it's when you spend money, whether it's when you get an achievement in a game, but like Nintendo, like consider it at some point. Like consider having digital trading cards, just like for some of your AAA games. I think that would be really cool. Because for me, like I don't really care either way at this point. Usually I don't really collect too many things, which is why like I get into more of like the digital collecting. So I would love that because I looked at the Walmart cards and they do look cool, and if I do buy this game, it will be digitally.
All right, so before we jump into Ocarina of Time, I think it'd be cool to just toss out our Nintendo Direct predictions, even though the people listening to this have already seen the Direct. I think it's funny to see what people thought before the things happened. So we made a bingo card. Like we said before, it's going to be on our Facebook and our Twitter and all kinds of things. So the first prediction is probably going to happen. Final Mario Kart 8 DLC.
I'd be surprised if they don't finally do that. I mean, it's got to be October, November release at this point.
And then Fallout 4 on the Switch is another prediction. Skies of Arcadia HD is something that was rumored a while ago but hasn't come up since. So I was like, hey, maybe that. Mm-hmm. Splatoon news. It's going to be some Splatfest. 1,000 Year Door remake has been... People have been asking for that for a while.
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
Mutant Mayhem game for Ninja Turtles. I know there was a rumor that that's in development, so we might get some news on that. Dark Moon details. That's almost definitely going to happen. Something Pokemon.
Shout out Sean.
Kind of vague.
Yeah, Sean. Yeah. I think you nailed it on that one, Ben. I think you got that one.
It's gonna just be a random thing. So
it's gonna be a mobile game, but we're gonna count it.
This one was heavily hinted at by a leaker this week that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 remaster are going to be announced in the Direct. This is something that I'm remembering is Suikoden. I never know how to say this RPG, but it's a PlayStation game that Suikoden 1 and 2 had an announcement, I feel like it was like a year ago, that they were getting an HD version on the Switch, and the rumored release date was October 2023. And we haven't heard anything about it since. So I'm going to guess Suikoden 1 and 2 are going to be in there since October's next month. Less than a month away. Wario Land game, Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3 on the Game Boy Nintendo Switch Online. Donkey Kong Country Remastered Trilogy. Sean would love that.
I can dream. It's not going to happen, but I can dream.
That same leaker did say that something Donkey Kong related was going to be in the Direct, so we'll see. Could be Donkey Kong 64 coming to NSO, could be a new game, could be anything.
Yeah, it's been rumored for a couple of years now. Like it's been percolating. Yeah.
Sean said Tears of the Kingdom free master mode, but I think we can expand that to just Tears of the Kingdom free DLC anything if they talk about that, because they had that interview earlier where they were like, we're not doing any DLC, but if it's free, it's different.
Yep.
Yeah.
Farm Sims, of course, we're going to get those. Hollow Knight Silk Song.
I can dream.
Oh,
I
totally forgot about that game.
I'm gonna put this in every prediction list I do and until it comes out. It's not gonna be there. And if it is there, I'm gonna freak out. But Hollow Knight Silk Song, come on.
I hope for your sake they finally are like, yeah, hey, it's coming to Switch first or something.
Or just something, like just a trailer, just like we're working on it.
I really hope we get Quest 64 on the on the Nintendo Switch Online service. I'm one of the only people who wants that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Bring on some Quest 64.
Yeah.
We're going to get some Mario RPG amiibos announced. That would be nice. Geno would definitely sell out, although I don't know if they own the merchandising rights to the Squaresoft characters.
I feel
it's kind of
like
weird.
It's neck and neck between him and Mallow.
No,
You really
no way.
think-
Geno has a huge following. People were like campaigning for him in Smash and like going crazy over him. I don't like either one more than the other. They're both even to me, but Geno's got a crazy cult following for some reason.
Okay.
We might get a look at the Arkham trilogy. We might get some Pikmin 4 DLC. We might get some new 3DS. So this was mine. I'll explain it. I said we'll get an announcement for a 3DS or a DS game that isn't Dark Moon. Because Dark Moon's, I think, the first Nintendo-made DS game that's getting a Switch version. So I think we'll see something else there. Kirby's Dream Course 2.
It's never going to happen, but it's nice.
No. Nice. Mario Galaxy 2 for Switch, I could see happening because there were rumors that they were working on it with the All-Stars collection, and for whatever reason it wasn't finished in time, and that's why it didn't go into that collection. So I could see them selling it as its own game.
Okay.
Princess Peach full game trailer. We don't even know what that game's called yet, I don't think.
Yeah.
I forget about that too.
Yeah, and I don't think they even gave us a title. I think they were just like Princess Peach game. And then the final square here is that we are not going to get any Switch 2 news in this Direct.
Yeah, we have one negative. I like it. So
those are our predictions. You already know if they're true or not, but listen to our next episode to hear us react to how wrong we were.
And if we get 5 in a row, then that means we get bingo.
Are there any besides Silk Song on here that you like really want? Because my picks for things I really want on here, I really want. It's interesting that none of us predicted, not Majora's Mask. What am I thinking of? Wind Waker.
Well, I wanted.
It's WW instead of MM. You flip it upside down.
I think if we were trying to do this bingo card only with the intention of winning, I think we would have to include that. I think that would be a safe prediction for tomorrow, or for the Direct.
I don't think it's coming.
Do you think it's going to go on the Switch too?
I think they're going to wait and then be like, "Oh, you guys wanted these 2 games. Well, here they are now."
Yeah.
I don't get what you're saying. So it is coming.
Just not on this system. I think they're
Not in
going to
this
wait.
system. Yeah.
So okay, so you're saying for the Switch too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not this direct. Yeah. I understand.
I could see that happening because at some point they're gonna have to switch to. They're gonna have to switch to the Switch 2. They're gonna have to switch to, you know, focusing on that, even though they haven't announced. They're gonna have to announce it first. But once they announce it, then they're gonna have to kind of start abandoning the Switch and saying, "Hey, everything's over here now."
If I had to make another prediction that's not on here, I think we're getting a remastered of something tomorrow. Like I'm sorry. I keep saying tomorrow. When the direct comes out, I think we're getting perhaps a remastered something like how we got Metroid.
Yeah.
Like what if we did get Metroid 2 and 3, just like Shadow Drop come out like the same day? But I don't think those games are ready. But I'm gonna say I think.
Well, I did see. You know what? I didn't put this in the rumor section either, but I did see that some. This is how much of a rumor this is. It was like the Walmart website in a different country, and I can't remember which one. We'll say Germany because I feel like it might have been Germany. Listed this week Metroid Prime 4 with a price tag of what equated to $60 American. So it could be the 2 and 3 could be dropping, and they could announce 4.
Okay,
we didn't put that in there either.
Yeah, we should have put a and that's not all square.
Yeah, there's so many ways to say, so many things to predict
on this. Yeah, again, I wanted to predict Golden Sun Switch Online.
Yep.
Yeah, something with the
Metroid Prime Zero mission. They've told us that's coming, but it hasn't yet. So that's a good, an easy one. And not Prime, just Metroid Zero mission. Sorry, it's Game Boy Advance game. Okay, it sounds like it's time to talk about Ocarina of Time. Yeah. We're out of that. So Ocarina of Time came out in Japan November 21st, 1998, and it came out November 23rd, 1998, North America. We had to wait a whole 2 days for some reason.
Madness.
Despite releasing the last week of November, this game was still the top-selling game of 1998.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy.
I mean, Pokemon was the top-selling game last year, right?
That's true. That's true. I had some notes that I took down. I've always talked about how I am like super interested in this game's development period. So I wanted to say these, and then I figure we could just talk about like our memories of the game. So I've always been fascinated by this game's development process because it was one of the first games that I was able to follow the development of. They were constantly putting pictures and stuff in the game magazines of the time, all the way back to when it was just called Zelda 64. And so because I just remember following these things later on in life, now there's YouTube channels and stuff where you can see they've like broken down every possible piece of this game, and it's crazy like following the development period. And I've got just some keynotes here of the things I found interesting. The first is that I always remember seeing the medallions that the sages give you when you finish the temples as an adult. In the early preview images and magazines, you would see those equipped to the C buttons. So I was always like, what do those do? Like, why are they able to equip them? And it's not that exciting because it turns out we know what they did now. And in early development, that was how you would warp to different places, is using the medallions. It took them a while to decide that the ocarina was going to, like, playing songs on the ocarina would warp you. So you originally used the medallions, and some of them had extra powers. Like the fire medallion originally did what Din's fire does in the game, which is make that huge fireball. And that's why there's a part in the game right before when you're in the cemetery, where you have to light all those candles, the logo you stand on top of in the original game, they changed it in some of the remakes, is the logo on the Din's Fire medallion. It's like still in the game as a clue, even though that's not how the medallions work anymore.
No, that's cool though.
And speaking of that area, the area beneath the well, which is like the scariest area in the game, or one of them, was originally the sewers beneath the castle, and it was going to be like in A Link to the Past, where you were going to escape with the princess through the sewers, but they changed that whole sequence, so that didn't end up happening. Link had a jump button in early versions. In fact, in the earliest versions, they used the Mario 64 controls, and that was just how they controlled him. They just ported them right over. And speaking of Mario 64, there's a level in Mario 64 called Wet Dry Land, and even though they hadn't started developing Zelda yet, if you go down, there's like a town underneath it in that level, and if you look around, that was basically the beginning of them figuring out, I wonder what a Zelda town would look like in a Nintendo 64 game. So that's what that whole area kind of is, even though they hadn't really started building towns for the game yet.
Kind of cool.
Ocarina of Time won 9 Game of the Year awards, and it was one of 14 games in 1998 that received platinum awards from Famitsu. But notably, it was the only Famitsu game of 98 with a perfect score of 40 out of 40. If you want to compare some others, Tekken 3 was 39, Sonic Adventure 38, Metal Gear Solid 37. And
just give it the 37 for Metal Gear Solid. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. But I think because I was thinking a lot about the development and the reception, and 98 is such a powerhouse year. So I'll give this question I'll give some context first. In 1998, over 60% of video game software sales were PlayStation. I'm talking consoles, games, software. Like over 60% were PlayStation at this point. PlayStation in
yes, because the Dreamcast wasn't out yet, so it was really just between Sega Saturn, which was failing, and the Nintendo 64.
Right. Well, right, and Game Boy, which is killing it at this point. At this point,
and Game,
but I will say, so in '98, PS1 outsold N64 worldwide by 15 million units, and it's pretty consistent throughout the different regions if you go from year to year. Because in '99, it's the same thing. PS1 is just overwhelmingly selling way more than any other system, handheld, home system, anything. So my big question that I'll give back to you, Zen, is like, is it understated how important this game was when it came out? Because like at this point, does Nintendo really have a good competitive adventure RPG game?
Well, that was something the 64 was criticized for, is it doesn't really have many RPG games, period, of any type of RPG. It's got this, it's got Paper Mario, which hadn't come out yet. You've got Ogre Battle and Quest 64, and I think those are it. Majora's Mask.
Yeah,
I guess there's some RPG elements in Harvest Moon. The point is, there's not a lot of them, but and especially not like you're saying, Harrison, like not this type of RPG for them. So, yeah, I think it's funny you bring this up, because when I was thinking about what I was going to say about this game, like we said, like what is there to be said that hasn't already been said? I was like trying to figure out, I was like, why? Because I know this game blew my mind when it came out. But I was thinking about it, and I was like, why did it blow my mind so much? Because it wasn't the first game where I was in a 3D environment. That was Mario 64. It wasn't the first game where I really saw any of these things. It was just kind of the first one to put them all together really well. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that part of its legacy doesn't get talked about enough.
And I was also thinking too, like, we're nowhere close to getting into the ranking conversation yet. But of course, this is not my favorite Zelda game. But I was also thinking too, like, when you think about like mechanics and elements of adventure games, like how much has really changed between Ocarina of Time and now? I'm not talking graphics. I'm just talking like environment, mechanics, like just different elements, like the way they educate you and teach you about the game. Because
well, here's an element of the game that you're kind of dancing around but not saying is Z targeting. This is I don't think this is the first game to have it, but it was the first game to do it really well. And I think it showed games going forward, this is how you do this concept of locking onto an enemy and doing battle with them. Yeah. And we're still using that today. So there's an element to answer your question there.
Do you find the combat of Ocarina of Time to be innovative as far as what was out at that time? Because, there's obviously similarities to today.
I feel like it was just the 2D Zelda combat translated to 3D. It didn't really, to me, stick out.
I disagree heavily because, and I'm a little bit polluted on this subject because I love the sequelitis video on YouTube, which really goes into this. I highly recommend it. But the combat was great for the time, but it hasn't aged very well because a lot of the combat is just based around waiting for an enemy. They attack and then you wait. You wait for them to expose their weakness. You're just waiting for them. Like the wolves run around you and then you wait for them to expose their weakness. The skeleton things. You wait for them to put the shield down. The everything you're just waiting. And whereas the combat in A Link to the Past, you had a lot more that you could do. You could push enemies backwards. You could attack them from different sides, which this doesn't really let you do much. You could, I don't know, he does a great job in the video of talking about why the combat in A Link to the Past is actually a lot better, or in its age better. But I will say at the time, again, going back to that, it blew my mind because I felt like I was in a sword fight, and it never felt like I was in a sword fight before in a video game, and it was working great. I just held my and it's not until years and years later where we're looking at it with modern eyes that you're like, wow, there is a lot of waiting in this combat.
I didn't notice that until you said it. So yeah, that's true actually.
I highly recommend that sequelitis video. It's old at this point. It's older than Breath of the Wild. So you're going to hear him talk about what a good Zelda game should be. And like almost everything he says is Breath of the Wild. So it's kind of funny that he like predicted it. But yeah, it's a really good video. Anyway, but back to Ocarina of Time. Yeah, blew my mind. Another thing I remember blowing my mind about this game, as silly as it sounds, when you get the hook shot, there's a laser pointer that shows you where it goes. And you remember back in like '98, everyone had those laser pointers, and they were flashing them around. I remember that was so cool to me. Is like, oh my god, I know exactly where it's gonna go. It doesn't make me guess. Like games up to that point were just making you guess where things were gonna land. Yeah. And the big one that I still remember, there's not a lot of video game puzzles I remember solving, but this one was like a core memory for me. So there's a part in, which temple is it? I think it's the Forest Temple. where you first get your bow and arrow. And
oh yeah.
so there's an eyeball switch that's frozen in ice. And in order to trigger that switch, you need to shoot an arrow through the candle into the eyeball, which will melt the ice. That type of complex, almost real problem solving, I had definitely never seen in a game before. That I literally remember having conversations with a kid at school the next day about, like, you're never gonna believe what I did in this temple, like, you, like, this is how you solve the puzzle, it's crazy, and him saying he wasn't there yet or whatever.
Yeah, because for the time, I
crazy.
mean, like, those LucasArts adventure games, like, the solutions to the puzzles were usually something insane. So yeah, that probably was one of the first, like, hey, this has like a realistic solution, but you got to figure it out. And yeah, that does
And there was
stand
something
out.
about Ocarina of Time that made you feel like you did it. Like in those LucasArts games that you're talking about, it felt more like I told the game what I wanted to happen and then the game did it.
Yeah.
Whereas here it felt like I shot the arrow through the fire into the ice. I was the one.
And I think
So-
that's an element that they've maintained through the
Exactly.
series. So I think that's really good. But I was just going to ask you guys, because I know the water temple is the thing everyone rags
Yep.
on, but is that really the worst temple to you?
Harrison, I'll let you go because I have some thoughts.
So I only played through the first dungeon this week.
Okay.
And I spent a lot of time then watching like different Let's Plays of this game this week while I was doing other work. And I just remember the water temple being frustrating when I was a child, but then it sure seems like it gets a bad reputation now. So I don't know if that's revisionist or not. Kevin, what do you think?
So they certainly improved on it in the 3DS version by giving you symbols on the wall that tell you what the water levels are going to be. But maybe it's because I had the player's guide at the time. I can't remember how much of the game I played with the guide or what. But the most annoying temple to me is the final temple you do as an adult, the Spirit Temple. And it's because I hate that it stops your forward progression. And to me, this is way worse than anything in the Water Temple, where you get there as adult Link and you do a little bit of the puzzle, you do a little bit of the dungeon. And then the game says, okay, now you have to warp to you have to play the song on the ocarina, warp to the Temple of Time, go inside, put the sword in the pedestal, change time periods, walk out of the Temple of Time, warp all the way back, now play some more of the temple as a kid. Then you finish the kid section, you have to warp back to the Temple of Time again, go inside the Temple of Time, pull the sword out of the thing, walk out of the Temple of Time, play the song, warp all the way back there and go in as an adult. Like, you could say, oh, it makes you change time periods twice. But the way I said it really drives home how annoying it is to me. I hate, and comparing it to A Link to the Past, which they do in the sequelitis video, I did not create this idea, but he has a point in the sequelitis video. He talks about, in A Link to the Past, you want to change where you are, you equip a mirror, you push a button, you're there.
Yeah.
Done. You don't have to warp to a completely different location, go inside, take the sword out of the thing. It's cool the first time. By the 10th time you're doing it, you're like, I really wish I could just play a song on the ocarina and change time periods.
Yeah.
See,
I'm kind of surprised they didn't do in the 3DS version.
For me, and I have a completely different, so I've probably only beaten the game, I don't know, 3 times. I think the first time was the 3DS version, but the temple I always have trouble with is the Jabu Jabu when you're inside the fish. Because it just all looks the same to me, and I just continuously get lost. It's not even carrying the princess around, it's just navigating it is really frustrating, so I would rather do the water temple than that one. So
I forget what the power is called, but The green one. A good help with that dungeon is the one that lets you warp back to a location. And it's the only time I ever use that one, because there's so many times in that dungeon where you have to fall down a hole blindly hoping it's the correct hole.
Yeah.
So I always make the warp point up top so I can warp back up top if I pick the wrong one. Although now I'm wondering, am I thinking of a different dungeon? Can you get that as a kid? You must be able to. Pretty sure I remember having that in Jabu Jabu. Could be wrong about that.
That's always been the one for me. And then I was curious if you guys had a favorite boss fight.
I've always liked, I don't know why, but I like the, what is he called? Bongo Bongo, I think, the hands.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Which is funny because it's also in Mario 64, which is the engine they were using at first.
I don't have a favorite, but do you guys like Dark Link?
I enjoy that fight, actually.
I like the concept of him. I don't know how much I like I love how the room changes and everything, but the actual fight I do think is kind of annoying. I don't know what you do. I usually switch to the hammer for that fight because he can't mimic it, which is a good help. But
oh yeah.
I see. I would agree. Like I think the concept of Dark Link is something that should be expanded to a lot of other games. But yeah, I'm not so sure about that.
I think my favorite boss might actually be a mini boss like Dark Link, and it would be the Iron Knuckle, where he's like destroying the room.
Oh,
and everything's falling around. Yeah, that's a really cool one.
Yeah.
I think my favorite actual boss fight's the Ganon that's in the paintings.
So I'm glad you said that, because the next thing I wanted to talk about is it's worth mentioning anytime someone brings up Ocarina of Time that another thing from the early development was they didn't know if they were going to be able to create Hyrule. So again, just like Mario 64, the original concept was you were going to be in Ganon's castle the whole time, and the different areas were going to be in paintings. And so if you wanted to go to like Castletown to shop at the market, you'd go into a painting of Castletown, and it basically would have been a copy of Mario 64.
That's like Mario 64. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So crazy. That obviously got changed eventually, but that boss fight comes from that stage of development of there was a boss where you'd walk into a room and there'd be all those paintings, and he'd keep coming out of the painting.
So as far as Ganon, I mean, it's easily one of the best end Ganon fights, I think, in the series, really.
The final Ganon?
The final Ganon, like, I don't know. I think it's one of the best, if not the best.
It's definitely iconic, and it's definitely the one that a few after were, like, reaching for. I don't know if I have a favorite Ganon fight, but they definitely, like, I feel like Twilight Princess was trying to top this one when he becomes that gigantic pig monster, and then you end up chasing him around Hyrule Field.
Yeah, you do that. I guess Breath of the Wild does that too then, right?
Yes.
Yeah, alright, so, because in that game I thought the fight with Zant was better than the end fight with Ganon, but the only one that stands out to me as equal, I guess, to Ocarina's is Wind Waker's. I really like.
Oh yeah, where you stab him in the face. Violently.
Well, just like it's just a duel, and I don't know. I like that aspect of it, but I've always enjoyed that. What's funny about playing it now is kind of seeing them learning as developers how to populate a world, because Hyrule's really small in that game.
Yeah, you can also see where so if you look at the early development, again, back on that, you can see where they scaled it down, and it was originally, I think, a lot bigger. And I do know that it originally was going to be a 64 disk drive game, and they had to scale it down for that reason, is that peripheral wasn't going to come out in America. So yeah, it's definitely a smaller Hyrule than people remember. But I think it's a certain point of development it was bigger, and they had to like, You can look at like early Castletown, and it's like literally a town. You walk through multiple alleyways and stuff, and
Yeah.
now it's just like 2 screens.
Yeah.
I think that was the thing that stuck out to me as a kid, though, was just being able to explore Hyrule like that.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Especially with the, I forget what it's called, but the thing that used the rumble pack, and you would find those hidden holes in the ground. That's such a Nintendo 64 concept altogether. Is you connect your rumble pack, and at various points in the field, you'll feel the rumble, and you put a bomb there, and there'll be a secret hole in the ground.
Right.
And there was never anything worth finding in those holes. Like, maybe you'll get 100 rupees if you're lucky. That's like the big ones. Or I think like 2 of them might have a heart piece. But other than that, there's nothing. You can catch some bugs. You can get some milk. It's not.
I mean, basically at the time, it's like, oh, it has a peripheral. Well, that makes it really cool then. Like,
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever had a rumble pack. I had like a knockoff rumble pack that was like the rumble pack memory card built into one.
I thought you didn't get it with Star Fox.
Maybe. It did come with Star Fox, so now you have me questioning if I ever owned Star Fox or if I like bought it used or something without the rumble pack. Because I don't think I ever owned the official rumble pack. I remember what mine looked like, and it was also a memory card.
In Ocarina of Time, is Navi jealous of Zelda?
I think there is. It's funny we just talked about the holes in the ground. So those holes have those statues in them, and if you wear the Sheikah mask, you can get them to talk. And I do think there's like some rumors in some of them that point blank say that she is. Yes,
I kind of get that vibe.
I mean, yeah, that was a thing at the time that was annoying, and it's still annoying. You know, there was probably a less invasive way for Navi to interact with you.
Yeah, I feel like there was good intentions with that mechanic, because I know we've talked on here about like putting down a game for months and then trying to pick it back up and then remember like where you are in the game and remembering what the B button does, and
it's at its worst when you start a new file. If you're someone like me who's beaten the game like 50 times, you start a new file and it's teaching you how to open a door. You're like, Navi, I got this. Is there any way for me to tell you I've played this game before?
Well, that's I didn't think about that until now. Yeah, that's interesting, because that's one of those Nintendo being Nintendo's got a Nintendo mechanics, because like I was I think about that in like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Like I wish after you beat the game you could skip the Great Plateau, and you could just like skip all of that. Or like, how many times do you have to play a Pokemon game, and do they have to teach you how to battle every time or how to catch Pokemon every time? Like, you have that
I think the worst example of it in the Zelda series is actually Twilight Princess, which they fixed in the Wii U, the HD version. Is in Twilight Princess, every time if you stopped playing and you reloaded your file, every time you play, it reminds you of super common items in the game. It acts like it's the first time you ever picked them up again. So like, you're relearning, a blue rupee is worth 5 rupees. It's like, I know that. I don't need to see this every time I play. And thankfully they listened and they took that out of the HD version.
I guess I blocked that out because I don't remember that.
It's so annoying in the original GameCube / Wii release of Twilight Princess. Like, it's constantly, every time if you went to bed and now you're playing in the morning in real life, if you are loading a new file, if you are loading your file, it's reminding you of basically everything you pick up. It's reminding you what it is.
Yeah, that's rough.
Like, I could see if I've been away for a few days and the internal game clock told you that. If I haven't played in like a week, you can remind me. But you're just telling me this because it's my next time playing? Stop it.
Yeah. So it could be a good option for a game. I always thought about that with like Breath of the Wild. After you beat the game, after you have your start next to your profile, like you should be able to restart and then not have to go through the tutorial. Although like games like Ocarina of Time, I think they kind of set the precedent for future Zelda games as far as how they implement teaching you game mechanics into the actual gameplay, so that you're just
Yep.
having fun while you do it. So that's definitely something that I think that's my favorite part of the Zelda formula is that they've made it a goal to immerse you and not take that immersion out when they're actually teaching you about the game.
Yeah, I think that's something they've definitely improved upon.
Does Ocarina of Time have the best soundtrack?
I'm gonna say. See,
One
now I'm
of.
thinking of Majora's Mask. It's either that or Majora's Mask are my two favorite, and it's tough because Majora's Mask uses a lot of Ocarina's soundtrack, so it's kind of hard to say one or the other. But yeah, I'll say the two Nintendo 64 Zeldas are my favorite.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
I mean, it's got to be the most. Sorry, there's a motorcycle going by now. I would say it's by far the most iconic. Like I know we can all hear it in our head. Like
They're still reusing some of the sound effects. I mean, some of the soundtrack elements, like when you go into like a shop in what was it? What game recently? It wasn't Breath of the Wild. I think reuses some of them actually. Yeah.
Did Link's
I'll go with that.
Awakening?
Oh, Skyward Sword. That's what I'm thinking of. Skyward Sword reused a lot of Ocarina of Time's music.
I'm sure Breath of the Wild does. I'm sure Tears of the Kingdom does. But yeah.
That's a perfect segue. So, in the Zelda franchise, and I guess also in gaming, is this game as good as everyone wants it to be?
If you're okay with this, I'm gonna talk about my ranking.
Let's get into it.
In order to talk about that. So like, I don't think it's aged as like people who still talk about this as the greatest game of all time. I have like, we've spent all this time now gushing over how good it was and how mind blowing it was at the time, but compared to modern games, compared to things like Breath of the Wild even, or Tears of the Kingdom, I don't think this is as good as people say, like you're asking, Sean. I think it was great for the time, but we've grown since then. And honestly, honestly, I would put A Link to the Past above this one. So that was my first thought when I had to look at my rankings. So basically now I'm like looking at Yoshi's Island because that's my number 2 game on the list. And I'm just like, I think this is really hard because then Super Mario World is right below that. But I think I'm going to put it in between the two. I think this is going to be my number 3 game for now, because I guess something that I should interject with here is, even at the time, I remember I liked Majora's Mask more. So the people who have said this is the greatest game of all time, even at the time, I didn't really agree with that. I feel like people were intimidated by the 3-day cycle in Majora's Mask, and we'll talk about that game someday, so I'm not going to get too deep into it. But no, not the greatest game of all time. Still a fantastic game. Still like a 95 out of 100, I would say. Just, I don't even know if there is a 100 out of 100 for me.
The biggest question I had is, this is something with Ocarina of Time, I think more than any game, at least any game I've ever seen, is that in your own personal philosophy, do perfect games exist? And I've mentioned on here that I think absolutely not. I mean, if you can play a game that you love and not at least be at least think critically about the game itself, then I think that's just not being honest. I mean, we all have games that we really care about a lot, and I think the N64 is going to go down as the most complicated gaming console in Nintendo history, because I think N64 has made as many iconic games as any system, but have games that don't necessarily age well because they introduce.
I would say the Nintendo 64, in terms of what you're talking about, you could compare it to the NES. It was like almost a complete restart of what a video game
absolutely.
is.
And and it's a restart, into what we have now, and what is popular now. So I mean, for me, Ocarina of Time is an S tier game. It is 100% a must-play game for anyone who is who wants to get into Nintendo. It is absolutely a must-play. I don't know where I would rank it in my all-time Zelda games. It might be actually a little bit low. And just full context, there's a number of Zelda games I haven't played or have only played one time. And for my ranking, I'm putting it also at number 3. I'm going to put it below A Link to the Past, and I'm going to put it above Mario Brothers 2, and I would put it above Mario Brothers 2 by a lot.
I think A Link to the Past is just cleaner. Like, I think we all agree we prefer A Link to the Past, and one thing that Ocarina of Time doesn't have that I love every time I play A Link to the Past is the giant treasure chest that contains the dungeon item.
Oh, yeah.
In Ocarina of Time, they just look like normal chests, as far as I can remember. I think they do. And in A Link to the Past, they almost always let you see that chest like right at the beginning of the dungeon, but you can't open it yet. So it like gives you this thing where you're thinking of it the whole time and you want to open that thing and you're just thinking of it. And then you finally get the big key and you run, and the whole time you're running back to that chest, you're like, I can't wait to get what's inside it. And that's something that I don't feel like ever happens in Ocarina of Time. You usually get your items after beating like a mini boss or something instead of running back to a chest.
So you guys, well, you have a different history with it too, because I didn't own an N64, and like I said, the 3DS was the first version I beat.
Did I say where I put it? I put it at number 3 too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to me, it's not one of the best games of all time. I wouldn't even put it in the top 5 Zelda games, but it's a good game. It's a very good game. I think it's worth playing. But I put it at number 13. So I got it above Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine and under F-Zero X. Because I just don't have as much nostalgia and love for it. So for me, it's a good game. But I've played certainly better games, and I think Link to the Past is probably still number 1 as far as Zelda games. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't hold up in the same light to me. So
real quick, if any listeners out there want to think of this, I agree. I wouldn't put it in my top 5 Zelda games, and in no particular order. I was thinking of this right after you said that, Sean. I think I have my top 5. These aren't organized, but I think my top 5 would be A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds, Wind Waker, Breath of the Wild, Dog Barks, Breath of the Wild, and Minish Cap. I loved Minish Cap. And you'll see most of those, with the exception of like Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild, are the top-down Zeldas. That's the kind I prefer.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Link Between Worlds, I hope we get a remake of that for Switch, because it's trapped on the 3DS right now, and it's such a good game. Would love to see that. And Breath of the Wild, yes, if you're out there and you're like, he likes Breath of the Wild more than Tears of the Kingdom, I'm pretty sure I do. Just putting that out there.
And
and you just unsubscribed.
And last part that I'll leave off. What, in your opinion, what's the best way to play this game?
The 3DS version's really good if you have access to that. The visuals are really, really nice. They did a great job redoing those. Other than that, I don't think it's that bad on the Switch Online service.
No, it plays really well. I mean, there's some, like, the being able to use the second screen to switch items and stuff is really great, but
the save state's really great.
Yeah.
Honestly,
on the Switch on. So yeah, the advantage to Switch Online is you have save states. The advantage to the 3DS version is they made quality of life updates, and that's what Sean's talking about. Is like, so if you play the Switch version, if you play the Switch Online version, it's obviously taken direct from the Nintendo 64. So you have to equip the Ocarina to a C button, which wastes a C button. You only have 3 that you can equip to.
Yeah.
On the 3DS, they were like, well, you use the Ocarina so much. Let's just make it a spot on the screen you can tap, and that way you don't waste an equipment slot on it. So there's little things like that they improved. Same thing with the boots. You don't have to go into the pause menu to change your boots every time. You can just tap them on the bottom screen. So I'd say the 3DS, the more I'm thinking about it, I'd definitely go with that.
I'd say the 3DS is probably the definitive version, but
which is not the case for Majora's Mask because they completely changed some of the bosses, and I was upset about that. But again, we'll talk about that game another day.
But we've done enough N64 games. I feel like Ocarina is one of the ones that I don't feel like I need that N64 controller to play it. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah. And there's hint stones, I think they call them. There's a spot in the 3DS version where if you don't know what to do and you're completely stuck, it's kind of like in the new Super Mario Brothers games, how they just like let you skip a level if you die too many times. In the 3DS version, they have this area of the game you can go if you're stuck, where it's basically like, this is what you need to do next, and it gives you like a vision of it. Just go do this, which is not in the original.
But I mean, overall, it's a great game. So it's worth checking out if you haven't played it.
And that sounds like all the thoughts we have for this fantastic game. Let's find out what we are playing next week in the future after we've seen the Nintendo Direct and know everything that's happening. So technically, because I'm sure they're going to announce something for Switch Online, technically the randomizer is missing whatever they announce in that Direct, but we couldn't predict it. So next week, we are playing WarioWare Inc. Mega Micro Games for the Game Boy Advance. That should be an easy one.
Interesting. I've never played it.
It's been a long time.
Well, another game that is now pretty much unlosable because of save states if you use those. Because it's all just mini games. So just use a save state before each mini game and you could beat the game in probably an hour. But yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll maybe talk about why do they keep making WarioWare games instead of Wario Land games. I would really like them to go back to that. And that is our show for the week. So if you have any thoughts on Ocarina of Time that you're like, why didn't they talk about this? Email us at nintendotherapypod@gmail.com or leave a comment below if you're listening on Spotify. And we also have, like we said at the beginning, we have a Twitter at Nintendo Therapy. We have a Reddit thing, Nintendo Therapy. We have, I started a Facebook group. If you search Nintendo Therapy on there. So yeah, let us know what you thought of Ocarina of Time. Let us know what you thought of the Nintendo Direct that we haven't seen yet. Let us know what you think of the Smart Fluid joysticks. Grandia 2. Did you also feel like it felt rushed? Because the whole reason I bought that collection was how many lists of best RPGs ever I've seen that game on. And I don't feel like it lived up to it. Thank you all for listening. We're Nintendo Therapy. You're not. Goodbye.
Hey, listen.